Well, a fiery attack yesterday on a pro-Israel group that was peacefully gathered in Boulder, Colorado, is being investigated as a targeted terror attack. The suspect in question is reportedly an Egyptian national who, at the time of the attack, had overstayed his visa. According to the FBI, witnesses heard the suspect yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack. So what's fueling these attacks, and what can be done to stop the spread? Here to discuss this and more, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He serves on 4 committees, including the Homeland Security Committee. Senator Johnson, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, Tony, thanks for having me on.
So what do we know about this attack yesterday?
Well, from my standpoint, I don't know that much other than what I've read in the newspaper, but it sounds like this is another individual that was in the country illegally and shouldn't have been. So you say, what could we do to prevent some of these things? Is, support President Trump, deport individuals that should not be in this country illegally. I mean, the good news is we elected President Trump, so we've largely secured our border in a stunningly short time. But I know his efforts are being frustrated by the courts. I hope John Roberts does end up taking up some cases here to bring the court back into its constitutional constraints. These district judges who are issuing nationwide injunctions, I think, just overstepping their constitutional authority. So it's going to take basically 3 branches of government trying to do the things that they need to do. Unfortunately, we don't have Democrats in the Congress that are willing to help us with this. So it's going to be relying an awful lot on presidential authority. And by the way, we've proven that the Democrats lied to us all 4 years, saying you had to do something. Congress had to act in order to secure the border. No, we just need a new president. But we also need a chief justice to step up the plate and rein in his out-of-control district judges.
So, Senator, based upon what we know, or we think we know, about who entered the country illegally during the time of the Biden administration, we have this Mohammed Salbri Solomon, 45, an Egyptian national, overstayed his visa. How many others might we have like this in the country that are willing to do harm to Americans?
Well, my fear are way too many. I can't put a number on it, but when you've allowed millions to flood into this country, when we know that there are people on the terror watch list, when we let in tens of thousands of Afghanistan citizens without vetting them at all, just basically gave them identities. People don't necessarily share our values. Again, I sympathize with the fact they're trying to escape a war zone, but coming to this country, not sharing our values, it's not a particularly good idea. So again, this was an unmitigated disaster, what Biden administration and his Democrat colleagues here in Congress did, opening up America to these types of attacks, to these vulnerabilities, a clear and present danger. It's a big mess that President Trump got really dropped in his lap that he's trying to fix.
Are you concerned, Senator, that we've become too accustomed to these types of things, that we don't realize the urgency of the moment, and that, as you pointed out, we don't know how many of these folks are here? This guy, we don't know yet. It appears he acted alone, although he said he was plotting this for about a year. We know that there's sleeper cells in the country. I mean, I'm not sure we're responding with a sense of urgency as we should. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. And listen, I think we've been numbed across the board on what radical leftism has done to this country. You get almost immune from the outrage that we should be all feeling when you take a look at all the issues the radical leftists push on America, all the things they've done to put us on a path of destruction. Remember, President Obama, shortly before being elected president, said in 5 days we're going to fundamentally transform America. He meant it, and they've gone a long way toward doing it.
Let's shift to another topic that I think will create more outrage. You recently led a hearing on the Biden administration and how they downplayed the negative side effects of one of the COVID-19 vaccines, that they knew that this led to myocarditis, the inflammation of the heart, and they basically sat on that information. Tell us about the hearing.
But we already knew because of the good work of people like Naomi Wolf and Amy Kelly, the Pfizer papers, and some other journalists who were digging into this. We already knew that Israel had contacted our federal health agencies in late February with a large number of cases of myocarditis, particularly particularly young men. So again, they were aware of this. I was watching VAERS. I was alarmed by what I was seeing in VAERS, thousands of worldwide deaths back then, close to 50% occurring on the day of vaccination within 1 or 2 days. When I confronted Francis Collins about it end of April, he just said, hey, Senator, people die. That's how cavalier he was. But specifically now we have gotten documents that others obtained by FOIA, but we got them unredacted. So now we have proof. And in the internal discussions, when they asked, are we seeing a signal for myocarditis? And the answer was, in young people, yes. And yet, days later, they decided not to issue a warning on the Health Alert Network, which would alert doctors to try and put 2 and 2 together to maybe make the connection between a case of myocarditis and the vaccine. And even worse, in the clinical considerations, a lesser of a warning, they decided to remove a warning to doctors to make sure that their patients with myocarditis, didn't involve themselves in strenuous activity. That warning alone could have saved lives. But this is how vested they were in a vaccine in every arm. They were trying to make sure they get approvals for these vaccines, for these injections. They're not traditional vaccines, that they could mandate them. That they wouldn't create any kind of vaccine hesitancy, so they kept the public uninformed, which is completely contrary. It violates the inviolable concept of informed consent. Informed consent was thrown by the wayside. It was kicked to the curb, all on the altar of this COVID injection.
Senator, this raises much bigger issues, and I would say, number one, the issue of trust. When you can no longer trust your own government to tell you information that is about your well-being, I mean, this causes us, and I know this is not new, but this raises it to a whole nother level where we were being mandated in many situations to get these vaccines, and we weren't told the whole story. I mean, this undermines credibility of the federal government in such a significant way. I'm not sure they can recover from this.
It's going to be tough. I mean, that's going to be a task for Bobby Kennedy. I think you can do it if you restore integrity of science. You have to start there. You can restore integrity of these agencies, but not until there's a thorough reckoning. And Bobby Kennedy is absolutely dedicated to radical transparency, but much to his chagrin, he's finding out that radical transparency it's much easier said than done. We're having a hard time. It's like pulling teeth getting these documents. So the documents we got, it took us months to get them. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. We still don't have the full accounting of the analysis they used on their safety surveillance system. One individual, Tom Shimabukuro, I don't think we've gotten any documents from his email server. We've gotten some with his name on them. We had a hard time even identifying whether he was still working there. And he was the guy who was in charge of the safety surveillance system on these COVID injections. So again, when people do wrong, they cover their tracks pretty well. The deep state does not reveal secrets very easily. And so these investigations, it's going to be a tough slog.
So how do we, I mean, obviously accountability from what has happened, but going forward, how do we ensure that these safety mechanisms that had been put in place that were violated here, such as the reporting mechanisms that let people know if there are adverse circumstances or adverse effects to these vaccines, how do we make sure that is in place and it stays in place?
Well, it starts with exposure of what happened so people understand what went wrong, so you can hold people accountable so that other people in those positions will do the right thing. It's also going to take doctors to understand that they are at the top of the treatment pyramid. Right now, they're being crushed at the very bottom of it. They are the ones with the primary responsibility to their patients, and they need to question protocols. They need to advocate for their patients. When patients ask for different types of treatments, rather than just outright dismiss them, but listen to their patients. I heard Bill Maher, and I've got to look up this study, but he said that the confidence in doctors, patients' trust in doctors was 70% before the pandemic. Now it's in the 40s. Again, that is a tragedy. Patients have to have confidence in their doctors, but unfortunately, because of COVID, that trust has been eroded, not only in doctors, but certainly in our federal health agencies as well.
I think you're absolutely right across the board. The trust and the confidence in our federal government and the health agencies and in doctors. I think, Congressman, we just got about 45 seconds left, but this also underscores the need for citizens themselves to speak up and ask questions. We shouldn't just follow these things blindly.
No, listen, in the end, you have to recognize you're responsible for your own health. And I think it's actually probably pretty healthy that we're starting to ask questions of the system, of pharmaceutical companies across the board. We have to take matters in our own hands, but we have to have a trust and faith in the integrity of science, and right now that has been legitimately eroded.
It's the only way our system works. Senator Ron Johnson, always great to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us today.
Have a great day.